For more analysis on this week's DNC convention and the Biden presidential campaign, we're joined by this week's pro-life panel. Marjorie Dannenfelser is the president of the Susan B. Anthony List and co-chair of Pro-Life Voices for Trump. Ramesh Ponnuru is senior editor for National Review and author of The Party of Death, The Democrats, the Media, the Courts, and the Disregard for Human Life. Thank you both for being here. First off, I'd like to take a look at the DNC party platform. The Democratic Party says it will restore funding for Planned Parenthood, repeal the Hyde Amendment, and protect and codify Roe versus Wade. Marjorie, first, can you put this platform into perspective for us?
Well, in two ways, historically, which no one knows this better than Ramesh. In fact, he literally wrote the book on it. But historically, the Democratic Party has been the party of the little guy, the one, the protector of the weak. This is a complete flip-flop, a flip script from what they used to be. I used to work for a pro-life Democrat. And so the other way, I think, to look at it, where we can just recite, and we have many times on this show, how the Democratic platform has absolutely zero protections for the unborn child. But I put it in the perspective of, say, how Ralph Northam did when he communicated that he wouldn't save a child that had been born alive. So we considered it and talked it over with parents. Think about that child born alive in of Virginia or New York who has absolutely no legal protection. And that is the issue of the Democratic platform. At no point in the gestation of the child, absolutely no protection up or after.
Ramesh, what's your reaction to the DNC's party platform this year?
If you look at the Democratic Party's platform language about abortion over time, you see a party that is steadily becoming more extreme. The Democratic platform back in the Bill Clinton era talked about making abortion safe, legal, and rare. It doesn't call for abortion to be rare anymore, just safe and legal. It now includes, for 2016 and 2020, for the first time, these last two times, it includes an explicit call for getting rid of the Hyde Amendment, which has been in place for more than 40 years now and keeps the federal government from funding elective abortions through Medicaid. So that's been something that has been maintained under Republican and Democratic presidencies alike. And now the Democratic Party is against it because it wants taxpayers to fund abortion, which is a very striking illustration of how little they are interested in making abortion rare, let alone protecting unborn life in the law.
Ramesh, when did we begin to see this shift happen to this extreme abortion agenda within the Democratic Party?
Well, I think that the party has been slowly shedding all of its formerly pro-life elements. That took a long time. It was a long process by which pro-lifers found that they no longer had a footing in the Democratic Party. There were a lot of milestones along the way. The 1992 Democratic Convention, when Bob Casey, the governor of Pennsylvania, popular governor who was a pro-life Democrat, was not permitted to speak about life at the Democratic Convention. That was one of those milestones. And it has just subsequently become ever more extreme. You saw the dropping of the language about abortion being rare. Even in 2012, you still had Democratic platform language saying, well, okay, we'll fund social programs to reduce the need for abortion. And now even that's gone. There's nothing that suggests that there's anything in any way regrettable about abortion.
Now to examine the Democratic presidential nominee himself, Joe Biden. Biden has a long political record from his time serving in the Senate to his time in the White House as vice president. Marjorie, what is Biden's record on the pro-life issue?
Well, he used to be in sync with sort of the mainstream old school Democrat position, which was relatively pro-life. I would never say he was vociferously pro-life, but he was definitely for the Hyde Amendment. He argued for it in pretty strong pro-life language, but in a way that I think is not consistent with how most conversions are occurring. He converted, so-called, to the pro-abortion position, the pro-choice position, from his perspective. So he's gone from thinking this is a cherished gift from God to something expendable that we ought to actually be forced to pay for. That is an enormous shift, and it's exactly the opposite of the Trump shift. He went from being adamantly pro-choice to discovering the beauty, the preciousness of that unborn child, and believing very much that it should be protected in the law, and that should be forced to take. And the that difference in him and in the Democratic Party that Ramesh outlined so beautifully is an enormous chasm between the elites of the Democratic Party, the party players and the ones who form the platform, and the grassroots who vote on who will be the next president and who senators are, and therefore they have created a great political opportunity to pick up Democrat votes in battleground states.
Ramesh, what do you think viewers should know about Biden's political record on life?
Well, Marjorie accurately summarized it. He was, I would say, pro-choice, but he was willing to make certain compromises. He was willing to say that taxpayers should not have to fund abortion. And he flipped on that in order to make this presidential run. And I think it's really striking about the priorities of today's Democratic Party, because Joe Biden did not have to give in and say he was for Medicare for all. He did not have to say he wanted to abolish ICE, the immigration restriction enforcer. He did not say he was for banning fracking, but he did have to flip on taxpayer funding for abortion, because that is now, unfortunately, a core commitment of the Democratic Party.
California Senator Kamala Harris. Oh, go for it, Marjorie.
Sorry, I just wanted to add significantly, because I wanted to get past us, is that he now has a litmus test for judges when it concerns Roe versus Wade. And that is potentially the most high impact position he has in, regarding abortion.
No, that's absolutely important to highlight there. And in addition to that, just last week announced that California Senator Kamala Harris is officially the Democratic nominee for vice president. A bit about Harris: while she was California's attorney general, she investigated David Daleidon's undercover Planned Parenthood video and even ordered a raid on his apartment. Marjorie, what should we know about Harris's ties to Planned Parenthood?
Well, she makes Biden look adamantly pro-life. She is someone who believes that even having religious conviction, especially if your religious conviction leads you to have a pro-life position, that should disqualify you from being a judge. That's what she revealed in her own examination of a judge recently from Nebraska for a district court position. Her pro-abortion position is so thoroughgoing. It has nothing in common with any of the vestiges of an old school Democrat way of thinking. So combine that ticket really puts a lot of distance between that ticket and the Rust Belt states and the people who will decide basically who becomes the president in battleground states have some religious conviction very often, especially Catholic, and also hold a very strongly pro-life position, or at least a normal one, or what America considers normal.
Ramesh, on the life issue, what is your reaction to Harris being on the Democratic ticket as VP?
Harris combines strong support for abortion with a kind of intolerant authoritarianism. And you could see it in her attempt to keep somebody off the federal bench just because he was a member of the Knights of Columbus, a case that Marjorie referred to. You can see it in her view that the federal government should step in and require states to get approval from the federal government before they do anything that might restrict abortion. So abortion becomes this sort of super right, even though it's not in the Constitution. It's protected in a way that actual constitutional rights aren't.
Wow. Well, I could talk to you both at such greater length on this exact topic. So grateful for you both for your analysis. I do want to note to our viewers, for more information and resources on what Catholic voters should know ahead of Election Day and the Church's teachings, go to EWTN.com/vote. Marjorie Dannenfelser with the Susan B. Anthony List and Ramesh Ponnuru with National Review. Thank you both.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Catherine.